today we are going to be previewing the 2025 season for the Houston Texans. Last year, the Texans finished 10-7, first in the AFC South. They ended up beating the Chargers in the wild card round and then losing to the Chiefs in the divisional round. And now they're entering year 3 of the C.J. Stroud era. And so far, it's been pretty good. C.J. Stroud / D'Amico Ryans era, I'm pretty sure. So far, it's been pretty good. They have 2 playoff appearances and I believe 2 playoff wins, both in the wild card and then both losing in the divisional both times. So let's see if the Texans can finally get over that hump and win a divisional game and make it to at least the AFC Championship game. Now, first, looking at the additions and losses that the Texans made this offseason. They got a lot of new pieces on this team, and I think for the most part they did well overall in the offseason. So first, they bring in C.J. Gardner-Johnson from the Eagles. Now, who knows when he's going to start, when he's going to play his first game. He might miss some time with the injury he had. But when he is healthy and when he will be eventually playing for the Texans, he is very good pass coverage safety. He had a very good year last year in Philly after sort of returning because he played for them before and then he came back. And he had a very good year last year after missing most of the 2023 season. He had 6 interceptions last year, and he is only 27, which kind of surprised me how he's that young. But he is a very good safety, and they bring him in and replace Eric Murray, who honestly, Eric Murray is just like a solid safety. He's not the worst, he's not the best. He was pretty decent last year in the coverage, even though that's not saying a lot, as that was like his best year in coverage. He's not really known for being the best safety in coverage. But again, he's not a top-tier guy, but he's like a solid veteran guy. But C.J. Gardner-Johnson is definitely an upgrade over Eric Murray. Then they bring in pair of 2 receivers. They bring in Jaden Higgins from the draft. I believe they're second-round picks. I think they traded away their first-round pick. And then they also bring in Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk, he can be a good receiver. His last 17-game season, he had 1,108. So you like what you can get from Christian Kirk as that second receiver next to Nico Collins, at least for this season, because I don't think Tank Dell's going to be here. So as a nice replacement to Dell as that second best receiver, you're not mad at a guy like Christian Kirk. And then you also bring in Jaden Higgins, who is a big receiver, has really good ball skills, body control, very good route runner. He's not the fastest or the best after catch, but he can get the ball and catch the ball when it is thrown his way. So I think he's a nice younger piece, so that way when Dell's back, you can have him, Dell, and Nico Collins as your 3 guys. And then they also have other guys they drafted, which we'll talk about briefly later, like Jalen Noel, I think, from Iowa State, too. Then at running back, they bring in they also lost Stephon Diggs at receiver. Diggs, honestly, was actually pretty good for them last year. He only played 8 games, but he looked pretty good. He was on pace to have himself a pretty decent season. So I think I think I would take Stephon Diggs over Kirk and Jaden Higgins. And for the future, I'd rather take Jaden Higgins. So I think in the now they got worse at receiver, especially also losing Tank Dell. But in the future, I think they'll be a very good receiver room. Now going back to Nick Chubb, who I mentioned, they brought him in to be that backup to Joe Mixon. Now, Joe Mixon also might miss some time at the beginning of the year. So Nick Chubb looks like he might start off the season as the number 1 running back. And when healthy, I know it's been a while since we've seen a healthy Nick Chubb. I think it's been like 2 years because he had that brutal injury, I think in 2023, missed the rest of 2023, and then missed like a little bit of 2024 coming back from that injury, and he still probably wasn't fully healthy. But when he is healthy, he is good. Again, what version of Nick Chubb will we get this season as the Texans' number 1 running back? Who knows? But Joe Mixon was pretty good last year for them with 1,000 yards, 11 touchdowns. So if Chubb can just fill in that role and play well while Mixon comes back, that'll be good. And then he can be a very good second running back. But I like the Nick Chubb addition. Not really anything wrong with bringing him in. You just got to hope you can get a good, healthy Nick Chubb. Because if you do, I think he can still be one of the better running backs in the league. Then they bring in 2 tackles in Cam Robinson and Ariante Ursery. Cam Robinson, solid player. Nothing too crazy. They do lose Laramie Tunzel as their other tackle. Now, Tunzel is still a good tackle. He was very penalized last year, had a lot of penalties, but he did not give up a lot of sacks. I do think he's better than Cam Robinson. But they also, again, they brought in Ariante Ursery from Minnesota, who was a 3-year starter at left tackle. He's a massive, massive player, massive human, good power, strong. So I really liked that pick. And again, I think Laramie Tunzel's an upgrade over Cam Robinson, or better than Cam Robinson. But one thing I like what the Texans did is their O-line was so bad last year that I don't fault them for just changing things up. Even if you don't necessarily agree with who they brought in, they're trying something different because clearly it didn't work last year. So they're not just going to run it back. So I like how they're changing their own line because of how bad it was last year. And they also bring in Laken Tomlinson, who's another just like decent to solid, like guard, veteran guard, whatever. And then you lose Kenyon Green and Shaq Mason, who honestly, Kenyon Green was not very good last year. So you definitely are okay losing him. And the reason you got Gardner Johnson is because you traded for Ken, is because he was in the trade that they sent Kenyon Green to Philly to get Gardner Johnson. And then Shaq Mason, he's just an okay player. So him and Laken Tomlinson are very similar. So again, I don't know if they got better on the O-line, but again, I like that they switched it up and aren't just running back another bad O-line. Another guy they brought in, Sheldon Rikins, probably like their third string interior D lineman. He's another like decent player. And when he played in 2023 with Houston, then he left and now he's back. In that 2023 season, he was actually pretty okay for Houston. So if he can be a nice rotational D lineman for them. So I think overall they had a pretty good offseason. Gardner Johnson, I think, is an upgrade over Eric Murray. Receivers, I think you downgraded right now, but in the future, I think you upgraded. And I like how they're switching it up on the O-line and not just running it back, because clearly it didn't work last year. Now looking at the full offense, and first the full O-line. So as I mentioned, their O-line was not good last year. I think they were tied for the third most sacks allowed. And they still don't have a good group on paper, but again, I like how they're switching it up. So Cam Robinson, again, solid player. Laken Tomlinson, decent to solid as your left tackle and left guard. You got your second-round pick, Ariante Ursery, who I like as a big, powerful tackle. Titus Howard actually wasn't that bad last year. He was pretty decent. So I think he's probably their best player on this O-line, Titus Howard is. And then Jarrett Peterson, their current center, he was just okay last year. Again, when you give up that many sacks, it probably wasn't the best season for Jarrett Peterson. Doesn't mean he's bad if the O-line gives up a lot of sacks, but so you like what you have in Titus Howard. I like the Ariante Ursery pick, and Cam Robinson and Laken Tomlinson are fine veterans that can fill in and bridge while you try and get better and younger. And this O-line is very important to protect C.J. Stroud, because C.J. Stroud had a sustainable O-line in his rookie year was amazing. One of the better rookie years in the history of football. And then he had a bit of a sophomore slump, if you want to call it that. Now, I think people overblow the quote-unquote sophomore slump Stroud had. He still had a good year. Still had 3,700 yards, 20 touchdowns, 12 picks. The touchdown and the interception wasn't the best, but they still won 10 games and won a playoff game. So, still took them to the playoffs. I know it's a weak division, but he beat the Chargers in the playoffs. So, and I think another reason why it's overblown is because he was not put up in a great position to succeed his second year. Nico Collins missed time. Diggs was out. Dell was out. The O-line was horrible. The only reliable player he had was Joe Mixon. Now, because Joe Mixon was healthy. So he wasn't really set up to succeed. But I still think Stroud's one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the league. And I think with hopefully a different O-line / improved O-line and a healthy receiver room that still isn't fully healthy because Tank Dell's out, I think Stroud will go back to what we saw from his rookie season. Again, at the running back position, you have Joe Mixon, who was good for them last year, but who knows how much time he's going to play for them. You bring in Nick Chubb, who's when healthy can still be, I believe, a very good running back. Dameon Pierce is their third string. I really like Dameon Pierce. I don't know why Dameon Pierce hasn't gotten the reps and opportunities that he has. Now, maybe as the second running back to Nick Chubb, who hasn't been the healthiest and isn't like a clear number one running back, maybe we'll see more from Dameon Pierce. But I like Dameon Pierce, and I think they should give him more carries as that third running back. Tight end position, you got Dalton Schultz, who had a pretty solid year last year for Houston, 500 yards, 2 touchdowns. I like Cade Stover as a backup. I think Ohio State, because I think they drafted him, and that was like, oh, he played with C.J. Stroud. So I like him as a backup tight end. Your receivers, obviously, Nico Collins is one of the best receivers in the league. Top 10 easily, maybe even top 5 receiver in the league. So you're perfectly okay with him as your number one. Again, I like the Jaden Higgins pick. Christian Kirk can fill in a solid role as just a rotational slot guy. They drafted Jalen Noel out of the 3rd round from Iowa State, who was very good at Iowa State last year. And then they also got Justin Watson from Kansas City, who's a okay veteran. And you still have John Mechie, who I think can still become something in the league. So overall, this offense, which was 19th in scoring last year with a bad O-line and banged up receiver room, I think should get better in the year 3 with C.J. Stroud. Now, the defense is something that you don't really have to question. Now, scoring-wise, they were 14th last year in the league, but in yards allowed, they were 6th. So you take that with what you will. So they probably were about like the top 10 defense. I think they can be even better this year defensively. First on the D-line, they had the 4th most sacks in the league. You obviously know how good Will Anderson is. I mean, the duo of Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, 2 borderline, if not actually top 10 edge rushers in the league. Probably the best edge rush duo, Anderson and Hunter. So you're obviously completely set there. Then you, again, I mentioned Sheldon Rankins. When he was with Houston in 2023, he was pretty decent. And then Falaronzo Fadukazi only played 11 games last year for Houston, but he was okay. I do like Tim Settle. He was pretty solid in pass rush last year. I think he could take Sheldon Rankins or even I think he can take Falaronzo's spot or even Sheldon Rankins' spot, become that number 1 D tackle. I like Tim Settle. And another pass rusher they have, Danico Autry, when he was healthy in 2023 for the Titans, he had 11.5 sacks. So if you can get, now, who knows when he's going to play this year, but if you could get some healthy football out of Danico Autry, that's a pretty good 3rd pass rusher, edge rusher for you. So their D-line, there's no questions about it. It's one of the best. Interior, again, is a bit of a question mark, although I like Tim Settle. But on the outside, you have no worries. Now, at the linebackers, you got Azeez Al-Shaair, who is a very good player. Missed some time last year with the whole hit on Trevor Lawrence that he had. But in 2023, he had over 160 tackles. He's good in pass coverage. And he's only 27, which surprised me. But I think his numbers should improve. I feel like his stats will be much better than they were last year because, again, missed some time. And then next to him, you have 2 pretty good young linebackers. You got Henry To'oTo'o and Christian Harris. Christian Harris was injured last year, but in 2023, at 22 years old, he had over 100 tackles and also showed a lot in pass coverage. And then Henry To'oTo'o didn't have his best year in his in year 2 in coverage, but was solid in the run, had over 100 tackles. So you got 2 linebackers outside of Al-Shaair who both had over 100 tackles in their most recent healthy season. So you really like those 3 at linebacker, especially in front of a really good D-line. And then the best part of this defense is their secondary. We haven't talked about their secondary yet. Again, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, very good safety. Hopefully he's ready week 1 because he's very good. Next to him, you got Kalen Bullock as your free safety. Very good rookie year. Got 5 interceptions, over 50 tackles. Showed he can be a good run defender and good in coverage. And I think all he's really lacking is the consistency, but it was his rookie year. He was a 3rd-round pick. He's only 22. I think that should just get better with time. And then on the corners, you have Derek Stingley, who we know is one of the best corners in the league. No doubt about that. Then you got Kamari Lassiter, who had a very good rookie year, and him and Stingley have already one of the better corner duos in the league. And Lassiter was a rookie last year. Jalen Petrie was very good in year 3. Now, he was very good, even better his rookie year when he was fully healthy. He's still good last year, but when he was fully healthy his rookie year, he was very good as that nickel safety type player. And then they also have Jalen Smith, another Jalen. They took like 3 Jalens. 4. They have Jalen Reed, Jalen Smith, and Jalen Noel. And then Jaden Higgins. But they got Jalen Smith out of the 3rd round from USC, so maybe he can contribute. But again, I don't know how much time he's going to get with Stingley, Lassiter, and Petrie. So it's one of the better secondaries in the league. I don't know how many passing yards they allowed last year, or like their interception numbers. They were 6th in passing yards allowed and 2nd in interceptions last year. So very good secondary. Overall, very good defense. And I think they'll be one of the best defenses in the league next year. Quickly looking at the special teams, at their punter, they have Tommy Townsend, formerly for the Chiefs. He's been here, I think he was here last year. He's a very good punter, one of the better punters. Fairbairn's a good kicker. Not maybe the most consistent at times, but you're completely okay with Keami Fairbairn as your kicker. And then in the return game, Dameon Pierce could be a good kick returner. I mean, he had a touchdown in 2023. And again, he's fighting for spots on that as that 3rd running back. Barrios is okay, but I do like Noel. He did run under a 40-yard dash, so I like him potentially as a guy that can add some elements in the return game as well. But just looking at punter and kicker, it should be a pretty good special teams unit for Houston. Now, on to the schedule. And before we get into the schedule, if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new. It helps the channel out a lot. But looking at their schedule and their floor, their ceiling, and their overall prediction, they have the 18th hardest schedule. Again, when you play the AFC South twice a year, that's pretty good. Playing the Titans, Jags, and Colts twice a year. Teams like the Jags and Colts can be pretty decent, but overall as a division, it's not the toughest. So you like what you're at with that. Now, I think at worst they can get 3 division wins. I think they could easily get 4, but just for the floor, I'm going to say they can get the 3 division wins. Then I think they can beat teams like the Cardinals and the Raiders. I think they can beat the Seahawks. And I think they can get another win in there. Maybe in the division, somewhere like that. My floor for the Texans is at 7-10. And again, I think they could have now in the Stroud era. They won 10 games last year. I think they won 11 games maybe in 2023. Not too sure about that. They've been around that same mark in these first 2 seasons. And again, they made some improvements, but they do have some injuries with Tank Dell, with Joe Mixon. So you don't know how they're going to recover from those guys, like how good's Nick Chubb going to be. But I do think they still have potential to have a good record, and my ceiling for them is 12-5, which leads to me having the same record as they had last year at 10-7. It's a very similar team, I feel like, because again, guys they brought in a lot more guys than they lost, but then you add the injuries and the uncertainty there. I think the O-line should be better, which again is honestly all you can ask for with how bad it was last year. But my prediction is 10-7, same as they were in 2024. If you enjoyed, again, leave a like and subscribe. And in the comment section below, let me know your thoughts on the Houston Texans for this upcoming 2025 season. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.